what happens is men, after many years of breaking their words, they start to lose the trust of their wife and the people around them. And then that causes women to put up walls and protect themselves. Your wife may eventually start just subconsciously filing all those broken commitments to the point where she's like, I don't know why, I just have resentment or I have trust issues with my husband. A little bit of bitterness can cause so much damage in a marriage, a little bit of resentment. And so it's critical.
So today we're going to dive into marriage. If you think you have a good marriage, then this video is perfectly for you. If you status quo, you don't really rock the boat, but it's good, right? Like they're connected, this is going to be for you. So the question I want to dive into with Skylar is, where could the husband specifically, where could they be missing it? And so I have some ideas around this, but when you think about all the guys that come through Raise Up Kings, like where are most of the men missing it? What would you say?
I'd say number one is being willing to be vulnerable, to open themselves up. Mm-hmm. I see that a lot. Guys at our events, right, they tend to drop down their walls with the other guys. Mm-hmm. However, they haven't fully done that always with their wives. And sometimes they don't even know what's inside until it kind of gets exposed. And so I think increasing vulnerability, which would increase emotional intimacy and lead to more physical intimacy. So vulnerability is huge. And then
wait, no, because I wrote out some points too, just in case.
Okay,
I said the exact same thing. Yeah. I said not the exact same thing, but I said they're maybe not having hard conversations.
Yeah.
Because that would be vulnerable. So I don't believe men are leaning into sex and intimacy conversations. Like, how can we be better? How can we connect in that way? But it would take a willingness to kind of be exposed and not be perfect.
Yeah, I got a message. I got a message from one of the brothers from last week. He said, I removed the mask for my wife and have been honest, vulnerable, probably for the first time in 8 years of marriage. And I've been going through every night pieces of the experience and opening myself up. The result, real, true connection. Great sex, honestly, the greatest sex. And so, wild, right? The power of having hard conversations, because I think it's being willing to risk ourselves, right? A guy might hold stuff back in. Maybe he's done stuff in the past that could hurt his wife and would have hurt his wife, but he held it inside. And so being willing to have that hard conversation and opening up could cause issues, yes, and could create deeper intimacy.
But in order to do that, they would have to be curious, right? They couldn't, if they have this place of shame and guilt, right? So when we keep secrets, it's so easy for the enemy to use those to create shame, to kind of trap us in alone. And I believe the guys at the Rise Up Kings event learn how to begin to be curious and kind of put that stuff outside of their identity. And so they're willing to admit mistakes a little bit more. They're willing to kind of step into letdowns a little bit more, right? And drop their ego. Would you agree?
Yeah. I have a number two. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Number two is commitment. Like following through with commitments and being a man, being a man of your word. And so I see that a lot, even in myself, right? There's a time where we got a dog and I said I was going to take care of the dog, help out with the dog. And then we got to a certain point where I got busy and I kind of let her take care of the dog and the animal stuff. And she got to a point where she started building up resentment and I didn't know it. And it came out that she was upset that I wasn't doing anything to help with the dog. And so I had broken my word to her. And so all we have is our word. Like that's how humans learn to trust each other. The complexity of a man is really refined through his word. So the complexity of a human being is simplified through his word. And so what happens is men, after many years of breaking their words, they start to lose the trust of their wife and the people around them. And then that causes women to put up walls and protect themselves if they can't fully trust that guy. Even though he may be a good guy, there's a lot of good guys that break their word, show up late when they say they're going to be on time. Like all of these little things cause someone to not trust the other person.
And when we say our word, that's not when you say the words, I promise I'm going to do this. Your word is when you say you're going to do anything, like I'll pick up the kids, I'll help with the kids, I'll take you on a date night. That is what we're talking about when you say anytime you make a commitment, even though you don't say I promise or this is a commitment to someone, when you just say you're going to do something. And so, there's been moments where you used to track that stuff because when I tracked it personally for myself, I said I was going to do things for a lot of people 10 plus times a day.
Yeah, most people do commit to things. So I used to have a commitment list where I'd keep track of all the commitments that I have. I don't have any more. It would be potentially good to start it again because we make so many commitments through the day. As an example, a commitment when you're talking to your buddy or a friend could be, hey, I'll call you back, or I'll talk to you later. Okay, that's a commitment. I'll talk to you later. I'll call you back. And so we don't clarify those commitments. And so throughout the day, we give little commitments. I'll check on that. I'll work on that. Your wife says, hey, can you look at the credit card statements? Okay, I'll work on that. All these little commitments. And so what happens is very easy to break trust. And what happens, it's not always conscious. Many times it's subconscious. Your wife may eventually start just subconsciously filing all those broken commitments to the point where she's like, I don't know why, I just have resentment or I have trust issues with my husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of led me to my other point.
Point number one for you.
If you have another one, but admitting mistakes and letdowns and then reconciling. So being intentional enough in your marriage that you know when there's a letdown, or you know when you just didn't show up the way you said you would, or your standard of showing up in marriage. And then how do you actually come back and reconcile that versus just kind of shoving it under the rug, pretending like it didn't happen. And then there's this invisible tension between you and your wife that no one's clearing because your marriage is good, right? It's status quo. Like, why rock the boat when there's all these underlying things? So being willing, I think a lot of men are missing it in being willing to admit the letdowns, admit the mistakes, own it, and that be okay, and then reconcile and figure out how it's better. But it takes a specific intentionality.
Yeah, what would be an example of a mistake that you hear from wives that guys tend to make?
Oh gosh, work. Saying I'm going to show up at this time, or being present, like I won't be on my phone, and then every phone call is someone's going to die, right? And I get it, because when he does it, I'm like, okay, he's being efficient. He knows that if he just gets this done, he doesn't have to do it later. But it's a lot around work and being present and time kind of together, because that's one of the wife's deepest things is they want to be connected. Mm-hmm. So like one of the biggest gaps.
Yep. Agreed. That's where the importance of communication comes into play, right? So regular communication, whether those conversations are done at date night or some other time, because there has to be an opportunity for clearing. Because these things we tend to hold on to things over time. And so if we don't have an opportunity to clear, and stuff gets pushed under the rug, then we just start to build resentment. And a little bit of bitterness defiles many, right? So a little bit of bitterness can cause so much damage in a marriage, a little bit of resentment. And so it's critical to share something if it's bothering you. If you're bothered or something rubbed you the wrong way, like whatever's coming up for you, to be able to share that and have that conversation. Clear it through journaling or clear it through some other way, but if you're not able to, go have the conversation so that you can move on from it, right? As opposed to holding on to it.
So if you're a husband and you're watching this, I'd love for you to comment below with maybe where you might have been missing it and what you're committed to. And if you're a wife and you're watching this and you want to send this to your husband, I would preface it with the words, hey, I want to have the best connection and marriage with you possible. Could we talk about some of these things? I might have some stuff. And so I can help bridge the gap for you with this video, or we can help bridge the gap for you with this video in creating those conversations in a safe place where it's not me versus you, or we're going to fight this out, or I have to be right. But can you just come to this place of, if you're asking him to admit mistakes, like, do you have some you'd be willing to admit too? Or if you're asking him to apologize, are there some areas that you might need to apologize? But this video can be the catapult to that in a safe space. And if you haven't, we talked about Rise Up Kings. That's an event, a 3-day event for men. If you haven't checked that out, definitely do. And then Rise Up Queens is the course for the ladies. Can't wait to be connected with you.